This happened right after the baby gender reveal. My husband and my sister-in-law disappeared into the garage. I saw my husband with my sister-in-law, pink confetti still falling. Could you ever really forgive someone for that? The pink smoke had barely cleared. The screams of, "It's a girl," were still echoing in my ears. I was 32 years old, standing in my backyard in Atlanta, Georgia, in April of 2025, surrounded by wilting balloons and half-eaten cake, and my husband, Sean, 40 years old, and his sister, Megan, 34, were gone. Vanished. Poof. I looked around, a knot tightening in my stomach. Maybe they went inside for champagne? But then why didn't they say anything? Why didn't anyone else notice? I wandered towards the house, calling out, "Sean, Megan, anyone want more cake?" Silence. An unsettling, thick silence that felt heavier than the Georgia humidity. The back door was open, leading into the kitchen. Empty. I checked the living room, where my parents were awkwardly trying to make small talk with Sean's aunt. "Have you seen Sean and Megan?" I asked, trying to keep my voice light, casual. My mom frowned. "They were just here," said something about needing to check on the garage door. The garage door? What was so important about the garage door right now? I walked outside, the pink confetti crunching under my feet, each step fueling a growing sense of dread. The garage door was slightly ajar, just a crack, enough to peek through. And that's when I saw them, Sean and Megan. Close, too close, surrounded by the lingering pink haze from the gender reveal canon. I won't go into all the details, but let's just say what I saw wasn't checking on the garage door. And the look on their faces when they saw me, guilt. Pure, unadulterated guilt. The world tilted on its axis. The pink confetti, which just moments ago represented joy and excitement, now felt like a shower of burning embers. I wanted to scream, to lash out, to destroy everything around me, but I couldn't. Not yet. I needed to understand. I slammed the garage door shut, the sound echoing in the sudden stillness. "What was that?" I managed to choke out, turning to my mom and Sean's aunt, who were now staring at me with concern. "Honey, are you okay? You look pale," my mom said, reaching for my hand. I need some air," I stammered, pulling away. I couldn't face them, not now, not with the image of Sean and Megan seared into my brain. I stumbled back into the house, grabbed my purse, and headed for the door. "I'm going for a drive," I called out, not waiting for a response. I needed to be alone, to think, to process. Where would you go if you were me? What would be the first thing you did? I drove aimlessly, the Atlanta skyline blurring through my tears. I ended up at Piedmont Park, finding a quiet bench overlooking the lake. The sun was beginning to set, casting long shadows across the water. It was beautiful, but all I could see was the ugly scene in the garage. I replayed it over and over in my head, trying to make sense of it. Had this been going on for a while? How could I have been so blind? Was our entire marriage a lie? My phone buzzed. It was Sean. I stared at the screen, my thumb hovering over the answer button. What could he possibly say? What explanation could he offer that would make this even remotely okay? "What?" I snapped, my voice trembling. "Hey," he said, his voice hesitant. "Where are you? Everyone's worried." "Worried? Really, Sean? You're worried?" I could feel the anger rising in my chest, threatening to explode. "Look, I can explain," he said. "Explain? Explain what, Sean?" "Explain how you were making out with your sister in my garage right after we found out we're having a daughter." There was a long pause. I could hear him breathing heavily on the other end of the line. "It's not what you think, he—" "Oh, really? Then tell me, Sean. Tell me what it was. Can we talk about this in person?" he pleaded. "Please?" I hesitated. Part of me wanted to hang up, to block his number, to never speak to him again. But another part of me, the part that still loved him, the part that desperately wanted to believe that this was all a terrible misunderstanding, wanted to hear him out. "Okay," I said, my voice barely a whisper. Meet me at Java Lords on Ponce in 1 hour, and if you're lying to me, Sean, I swear. I trailed off, unable to finish the sentence. I'll be there, he said. I promise. I hung up, my heart pounding in my chest. Java Lords was a little cafe with wooden tables and the constant aroma of coffee. I had been going there since I was a student at Georgia State. It was familiar, safe, a place where I could hopefully gather my thoughts before facing Sean. An hour later, I sat at our usual table, nursing a cup of tea. Sean was late. 5 minutes late. 10 minutes late. With each passing minute, the hope that he could somehow explain things away dwindled. He ran a hand through his hair and slid into the seat across from me. I'm so sorry, he said, his voice low. Sorry? Sorry isn't going to cut it, Sean. What happened in the garage? Tell me the truth. He hesitated, avoiding my gaze. It was a mistake, he mumbled. A stupid, drunken mistake. Drunken? You barely had 2 beers, Sean. Don't insult my intelligence. He sighed. Okay, fine. It wasn't about the alcohol. It just happened. Just happened. You just happened to start kissing your sister in my garage after my baby gender reveal? It's more complicated than that, he said. Complicated? How could this possibly be more complicated than what it looks like? He took a deep breath. Megan and I, we've always been close. Since we were kids, there's always been something there. Something there? Are you telling me you're in love with your sister? He didn't answer. He just looked down at the table, his face etched with shame. The cafe suddenly felt suffocating. The aroma of coffee, which usually brought me comfort, now made me nauseous. I stood up, knocking over my tea. I can't do this, I said, my voice shaking. I can't listen to this anymore. Please don't go, he begged, reaching for my hand. I pulled away. Don't touch me, Sean. I need some space. I need to figure out what to do now. I walked out of the cafe, leaving him sitting there alone. The rain was coming down in sheets now, mirroring the storm raging inside me. What would you do? Would you stay and listen? Or would you run like I did? I couldn't eat, I couldn't sleep, I could barely function. I called in sick to work, telling my boss I had the flu. The truth was, I felt like I had been hit by a truck. My mom kept calling, wanting to know what was going on. I didn't want to tell her. I didn't want to admit that my marriage was falling apart. But I knew I couldn't keep it a secret forever. She was shocked, angry, and heartbroken for me. That no good son of a... she started, but I cut her off. Mom, please, I don't need you to badmouth him. I just need you to listen, she sighed. Okay, honey, I'm here for you, whatever you need. Having my mom's support helped, but it didn't erase the pain. I still had to face the reality of what Sean had done. I had to decide what to do. I started by contacting a lawyer. I needed to understand my legal options. Divorce, separation. What would happen to our house? What about the baby? The lawyer was a no-nonsense woman named Mrs. Davis. She listened patiently to my story, her expression unreadable. This is a difficult situation, she said when I finished. But you have rights. We can explore all your options. She explained the process of filing for divorce, the division of assets, and the custody arrangements for our child. It was overwhelming, but I knew I needed to do it. I needed to protect myself and my baby. I spent hours going through our financial records, trying to get a clear picture of our assets and debts. That's when I found it. A GoFundMe account. Baby Last Name's Future Fund. It had been created by Megan. I clicked on the link, my heart pounding in my chest. The description was sweet and sentimental, talking about how excited everyone was for the baby and how they wanted to help us provide the best possible future for her. And then I saw the amount raised, $27,200. $27,200. I hadn't authorized this. Sean hadn't mentioned anything about it. Why would Megan do this without our knowledge? I scrolled through the list of donors, recognizing names of friends, family members, and even some of my coworkers. They had all contributed. believing they were helping us prepare for our baby's arrival. But where was the money? I checked our bank accounts. Nothing. No sign of $27,200. I felt a wave of nausea wash over me. This wasn't just about Sean and Megan kissing in the garage. This was about something much bigger, something much worse. Had she set up the GoFundMe and stolen the money? I decided to call Megan. I needed answers. "Hey, Megan," I said, trying to keep my voice calm. "I was just looking at the GoFundMe page you set up for the baby. That was so thoughtful of you." "Oh, yeah, sure," she said, her voice sounding strained. "Just trying to help out. I was just wondering, where's the money?" I asked. There was a long pause. "What do you mean?" she said, her voice suddenly defensive. "I mean, the $27,200 that people donated. I don't see it in our bank accounts." "Oh," she said, her voice trembling slightly. "Well, I haven't transferred it yet." "Why not?" "I was waiting until we had a better idea of what we needed to buy," she said, her voice sounding weak. "That doesn't sound right, Megan. Why wouldn't you let us know or ask us?" "Look, I've been busy, okay?" she snapped. "Just give me a break." "Megan, where is the money?" I repeated, my voice hardening. She hung up. I stared at my phone, my mind racing. She was lying. I knew it. But why? What was she doing with the money? I decided to do some more digging. I went back to the GoFundMe page and looked at the withdrawal information. It showed that the money had been transferred to a bank account in her name. I did some research and discovered that the account was a travel fund account with a goal to travel Europe for 2 months. My blood ran cold. She had stolen $27,200 from our friends and family and was planning to use it to travel Europe. Alone or with Sean? I felt a surge of anger so intense that I thought I might explode. How could she do this? How could she be so selfish, so cruel? I knew I had to expose her. I had to tell everyone what she had done. But then I thought about my baby, about her future. If I exposed Megan, it would create a scandal. It would damage our family. It would affect my child's life forever. Was it worth it? Should I stay quiet to protect my baby, even if it meant letting Megan get away with her crime? Or should I expose her and risk the consequences? What would you do? Protect your child or seek justice? I couldn't sleep that night. I tossed and turned, wrestling with my conscience. I needed to clear my head. I made a cup of tea and sat at the kitchen table, staring out the window. The sky was still dark, but I could see the first faint hints of dawn on the horizon. As I sat there sipping my tea, I noticed something odd on the front porch. A small white envelope. I went outside and picked it up. It was addressed to me in handwriting I didn't recognize. I opened the envelope and pulled out a single sheet of paper. On it was written a single sentence. "Keep your mouth shut, or you'll regret it." My hands began to tremble. This was more than just a family drama. This was a threat. Who had sent it? Sean? Megan? Or someone else entirely? I looked around, my heart pounding in my chest. The street was deserted. The only sound was the chirping of crickets. I went back inside and locked the door. I felt trapped, vulnerable, afraid. I knew I couldn't stay silent any longer. I had to protect myself. I had to protect my baby. I decided to call the police. The detective assigned to my case was a woman named Detective Miller. She was tough, no nonsense, and clearly didn't have time for drama. I told her everything from the affair to the stolen money to the threatening note. She listened patiently, taking notes. "We'll look into it," she said when I finished. "We'll need to interview Sean and Megan. We'll also need to examine the GoFundMe account and the bank records." I felt a glimmer of hope. Maybe, just maybe, the police could help me get to the bottom of this. We interviewed Sean and Megan," she said. "They both denied sending the threatening note." "Did they admit to the affair?" I asked. "Sean admitted to it," she said. "Megan denied it." "And what about the money?" "Megan claims she was planning to transfer it to you all along," Detective Miller said. She says she just hadn't gotten around to it yet." "That's a lie," I said. "She was planning to use it to travel Europe." We're still investigating, Detective Miller said. But without more evidence, it's going to be difficult to prove anything. I felt a wave of despair wash over me. It seemed like Megan was going to get away with it. But I refused to give up. I decided to take matters into my own hands. I knew that Megan had a close friend named Emily. They had been friends since childhood. I decided to reach out to her. I found Emily's number online and gave her a call. Emily, hi, it's protagonist's name, I said, trying to sound friendly. I know this is probably awkward, but I really need to talk to you about Megan. Emily hesitated. What about Megan? She asked, her voice guarded. I know about the GoFundMe account, I said. I know she stole the money. There was a long silence. I don't know what you're talking about, Emily said. Don't lie to me, Emily. I know you know. Megan tells you everything. Emily sighed. I know, but I didn't have anything to do with it. Did you know that she planned to take off and travel across Europe with that money? No, I had no idea. She told me she had been investing in a new business, Emily said. Her voice filled with disbelief. Well, she lied. I took a deep breath. Emily, I need your help. I need you to tell the police what you know. I don't know, she said. I don't want to get involved. Megan is my best friend. But she stole money from my baby, Emily. She's destroying my life. Emily was silent for a moment. I could hear her breathing heavily on the other end of the line. Okay, I'll do it, but I'm scared. I know, I said. But it's the right thing to do. Emily's testimony was the break the police needed. They were able to obtain a warrant to search Megan's apartment, and that's when they found it. A plane ticket to Europe, booked in Megan's name, and a journal filled with her plans for her trip. The police arrested Megan and charged her with theft and fraud. I felt a sense of relief wash over me. But the relief was short-lived. The trial was a media circus. The story of the affair and the stolen money was splashed across the headlines. I was subjected to intense scrutiny. People judged me, criticized me, and blamed me for what had happened. It was a nightmare, but I knew I had to stay strong. During the trial, Megan tried to paint herself as the victim. She claimed that she had only set up the GoFundMe account to help us, and that she had never intended to steal the money. She even tried to blame Sean, saying that he had pressured her into doing it. But the evidence was overwhelming. The jury found her guilty on all counts. She was sentenced to 5 years in prison. Sean and I divorced. It was a painful process, but I knew it was the right thing to do. I couldn't stay married to someone who had betrayed me so deeply. After the trial, I tried to rebuild my life. It wasn't easy. I had to find a new job, a new home, a new sense of self. But I was determined to make it work. I was determined to create a good life for my baby. I started by focusing on my career. I worked hard. I took on new challenges, and I eventually landed a promotion. I also started seeing a therapist. I needed to process the trauma I had experienced. I needed to learn how to trust again. It took time, but eventually I started to heal. I started to feel like myself again. And then, one day, I met someone. His name was David. He was kind, intelligent, and funny. He was everything Sean wasn't. We started dating, and I quickly fell in love. He was supportive, understanding, and he made me feel safe. He loved me and accepted me for who I was, flaws and all. A year later, we got married. It was a small, intimate ceremony, surrounded by our closest friends and family. As I stood there, holding David's hand, I realized that I had survived the betrayal, the scandal, and the heartbreak. I had rebuilt my life, and I had found love again. But there was one thing that still haunted me. Megan. She was still in prison, serving her sentence. I hadn't spoken to her since the trial. Part of me wanted to hate her forever. Part of me wanted to see her suffer. But another part of me felt pity. I knew that she had made terrible choices, but I also knew that she was deeply flawed, and that she had likely been struggling with her own demons for a long time. One day, I decided to visit her in prison. I drove to the prison, my hands trembling on the steering wheel. I didn't know what to expect. I went through security and was led to a small visiting room. A few minutes later, Megan walked in. She looked different, older, thinner, and sadder. We sat down at a table, a thick pane of glass separating us. "Hi," I said, my voice barely a whisper. "Hi," she said, avoiding my gaze. We sat in silence for a moment. I wanted to apologize. For everything. For the affair, for the stolen money, for everything I put you through. I didn't say anything. "I know it doesn't excuse what I did," she continued, "but I was lost. I was jealous of you. I wanted what you had. You had everything, Megan. A supportive family, a good job. What could you possibly be jealous of?" "I don't know," she said, her voice cracking. "I just wanted to be you for some reason. I was so unhappy, and I thought that if I could just have your life, I would be happy. I was wrong." I looked at her, really looked at her. I saw the pain in her eyes, the regret in her voice, and I realized that I couldn't hate her anymore. I couldn't waste my energy on anger and resentment. I had to forgive her. "I forgive you, Megan," I said. Her eyes widened. "Really?" she said, her voice filled with disbelief. "Yes," I said. "But that doesn't excuse what you did. You still have to pay for your crimes." "I know," she said, "and I will." We talked for a while longer. She told me about her experiences in prison, about the people she had met, and about the lessons she had learned. I listened, and I tried to understand. When it was time for me to leave, I stood up and walked to the glass. "I hope you can find peace, Megan," I said. "Thank you," she said. "And thank you for forgiving me." I turned and walked away. I never saw Megan again. But I knew that I had done the right thing. I had forgiven her, not for her sake, but for my own. Holding on to anger and resentment only hurts you. Forgiveness sets you free. I went on to live a happy and fulfilling life. I raised my daughter, and I watched her grow into a strong and independent young woman. I never forgot what happened with Sean and Megan, but I didn't let it define me. I learned from it, I grew from it, and I moved on. Life is full of unexpected twists and turns. You never know what's going to happen, but what matters is how you choose to respond to those challenges.